Well, nearly half of American taxpayers are somewhat or very dependent on receiving a tax refund from the IRS. Now, that's according to a survey commissioned by H&R Block. But what happens if that refund is delayed? H&R Block's Fred Sokolowski is here to share some more about tax refund delays and what happens and really where to get started. Welcome to the show. Great to have you here.
Thank you for having me.
All right, so what is the first step? Here it is, January. People are probably starting to think about their taxes.
People are thinking about their taxes, and the IRS is expected to start accepting tax returns on the 29th. However, people who, because of the PATH Act that was passed in December of 2015, anyone who gets earned income credit or additional child tax credit, which is probably about 30 million people, the Congress instructed the IRS to not even start processing those returns until mid-February. So those people aren't going to be seeing their refunds until late February, early March. And that's probably about, of the 30 million people that get this credit, that's probably about half of those people are early filers.
Wow, and people depend on that for their income.
People depend on that for paying rent, paying bills, catching up on Christmas card debt, things like that.
Right, so what are the options?
The options that they have are H&R Block through a bank, BOFI, a federal bank, does something what's called a Refund Advance. And what H&R Block will do is, if approved and if it goes through BOFI, you can be approved for up to $3,000 of money that you would get in as little as 2 days. And we're seeing some of these come very quickly now, even though the IRS isn't even online yet. And then once the IRS releases your funds, the BOFI is then reimbursed for that, and the balance of that is forwarded to you.
What a great option that a lot of people probably aren't familiar with.
It is really a good option, or if somebody is looking forward to getting their money quickly, right, it really works out very well.
All right, so what are the key factors that taxpayers need to know this year? Because I know, as you mentioned, there are some changes.
The big changes that we have this year, as far as the federal, we don't see too many issues. We're looking forward to next year. Many of the people I've sat down with already, we're actually running numbers to see how that's going to impact them next year, and most of those we're seeing very favorably. I think one of the most critical issues that we see in Connecticut now is for the elderly. The state legislature, during their regular General Assembly, passed a law requiring anyone who is any payer of pensions or retirement accounts, they are required to start withholding 6.9% of that pension payment unless if the receivers of the pension fill out a new Connecticut W-4P. So that means if you take a married couple who, let's say they're getting a pension of $1,500 a month, they haven't had to do a tax return for years. That's below the minimum filing requirement. They do not have to do a tax return. But now, if they do not fill out that W-4P, then there is going to be 6.9% of that $1,500 a month, it's about $100, withheld. Wow. And if they don't do a tax return in 2018, the state of Connecticut will keep that. So what we're seeing is many people are aware of this, but a lot more are not. So we're really trying to help these people fill out this W-4P so that they don't have unnecessary withholding.
And that's going to affect next year as well, so you really have to get that done. You
need to get that done, and I think we're expecting a big influx in the next couple of weeks when people start getting their pensions, and all of a sudden there's 6.9% missing.
What happened to it, right?
Well, what happened to it? And there's a lot of misinformation out there. Some people think that you have to pay that tax. You do not. And the crazy thing about that is the Connecticut tax form is 4 pages long.
Oh, so no one's really reading that thoroughly, are they?
No one is reading anything. So it's going to be it could be a difficult time if people are on the top of that.
They need to head over to H&R Block, correct?
I think it would be a really good idea.
Sure.
And we always answer questions, and we get a lot of people come in just with a quick question, and if they like what they hear, then they stay, and if they don't, they move on. But most people stay.
Very good. Fred, give us your website.
It's www.hrblock.com. Right. And for more information about that Refund Advance, you can look at that website and get information about the Refund Advance.
Crucial information. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank you.